Here it is. Brigid Delaney is a former speechwriter for Labour Ministry Katie Gallagher in the Australian Parliament. She was a journalist for The Guardian, where she wrote the very popular weekly column, Brigid Delaney's Diary, which was widely read in Australia, the US, and the UK. She's the author of Reasons Not to Worry, How to Be a Stoic in Chaotic Times. By the way, I have a copy of that right here. I'd get you to sign it if you were closer. That's all I'm going to say about that. And let's see, a practical guide to stoicism for self-improvement and personal growth. Oh, sorry. Reasons not to worry, how to be stoic in chaotic times, a practical guide to stoicism for self-improvement and personal growth. Her other books include This Restless Life, Wild Things, and Wellmania. She was also co-founder of the Mercy Campaign and anti-death penalty movement, and co-creator and associate producer of the Netflix comedy Wellmania. And if you're lucky enough to live in Australia, she's got a brand new book out as well. And maybe we'll even talk about the Sage when we get to the end of this thing. Brigid Delaney, welcome to Stoicon 2025.
Thanks, Phil. First time at Stoicon. Very exciting.
You know, there are tales I want to ask you about. By the way, I think you might have been the first of our panelists or first of our presenters or people to talk to us who got name checked earlier in the day, right? One of our lightning talk presenters told us that they came to Stoicism because of Brigid Delaney's book. This very one right here, Reasons Not to Worry. So I'm glad that you're having good ripple effects.
Yeah. I'm the elevator that gets people in at the ground floor, and then they can go up and explore, all the other texts. So yeah, it's very cool.
Yeah, I think that has got to feel good to be able to walk down the street or have someone come to one of these events. And I know I did the Melbourne Stoicon. Of course, everybody was talking about you there because they're all Australians. They all know who you are really, really well. And they're like, yeah, I came to Stoicism because of Brigid Delaney. I was like, all right, that's awesome.
Yeah, I did a book event yesterday in a little town called Queenscliff, on the coast of Victoria. And there was a woman who came up to the signing table, and she had a copy of Reasons Not to Worry that it looked like had been dropped in the bath. And she had three young children with her. And she said, I am trying to parent, I'm a single parent of three young kids, and your book has helped me with parenting. And that's not the intention, but people have found that Stoicism has helped them in these kind of really diverse areas. And the book is easy to read. So people come in at that level, they're underlining the lessons, it's helping them, at certain aspects of their life. And then I think, when time permits, they'll read more, they'll see it applies further. But I'm really thrilled to get feedback from people like her who are using it in a variety of really interesting circumstances.
Yeah, the thing is, so I call these kinds of books, your book on that one it's an on-ramp for people who need some
Yeah.
stoicism and they don't really get it quite yet. Because, I know a lot of people say, oh, you should just go to the sources, read Epictetus, read
Mm.
Musonius Rufus, read Seneca, perhaps even. And I think for a lot of people, you're just not prepped for that,
Well,
because
this woman with three young kids under the age
yeah,
of 8 is not going to go and read Seneca in the 15 minutes she's got before she falls asleep. She's going to probably go to the self-help section, grab a book that looks friendly, and then you go to Seneca. So I love the egalitarian nature of Stoicism. I think it's the whole sort of notion of the Stoa being an open place, an open porch, where everyone can come in. I just want to carry that forward, I think, and that's why your conferences are amazing, because everyone's welcome. And yeah, so thank you, Phil, for organizing this.
well, thank you for coming here and hanging out with us. I want to ask you some questions. Some of this is to kind of expose a little bit of Brigid Delaney's thinking so people can appreciate you a little more and dig into some of these other things. Because I think there are probably lots of people who know you through this yellow book. There's probably a lot of people who know you through Wellmania and
Mm.
some of the big things that you've worked on and people know about. And, I thought I could dig into some of the other pieces and we could ask a few
Mm.
questions and you could tell us about you and Stoicism, right?
Yeah.
And I'm going to come back. If I don't pull this out quite right, I'm going to come back to your story again. But let's just get started on this. Your career, I've written down some answers or questions. Your career has spanned journalism for outlets like The Guardian, the Sydney Morning Herald, The Telegraph, CNN, politics, serving as speechwriters we mentioned earlier. Both of those are high stakes, fast paced environments, often characterized by conflicts and someone else's urgency. My question is, how does a Stoic navigate through that? How
Um,
did you tell people how you came to it and then how you used it? Maybe that's the way we
okay,
should
so
start
I've
there.
been well established as a journalist before I came to Stoicism, and I had a column in Australia, and each week you've got to write something new, and some weeks there'd be nothing to write about. And a friend of mine who was the foreign editor at The Guardian got a press release for Stoic Week and said, will you do this kind of as a joke column? Because I used to do things like one column, I just listened to only Joe Rogan for an entire week, like for 8 hours a day, wrote about that. Another week, I um, tried to sleep each night with my mouth taped shut. So this was this week's experiment. And look, I didn't spend a huge amount of time doing my reading for Stoic Week. Kind of took it not very seriously. Wrote a piece, and then people, the people who had done Stoic Week seriously wrote to me and said, we don't think you gave it justice in your column. It helps a lot of people, and it's a real shame that you didn't use your voice to really properly explain Stoic Week. So I took that on board, and the following year I went back and did it privately with a group of friends. We set up a WhatsApp, and this was 2018, and I just became really engaged in it because in our private group we would check in each day and we would say, what's happened to you today? Might be something with parenting or work or the commute. Okay, what have we learned today in Stoic Week? How can that apply? And in my group in Sydney, there weren't a lot of places where you could kind of meet and talk at that level. That was quite personal, but applying the Stoicism sort of weirdly depersonalized it. So people felt like they could share their problems, but within a framework and within a kind of prescribed space. So my second go at Stoic Week was fantastic. And then a friend and I decided to go on and learn Stoicism together just by reading all the books, all the big texts. And we would meet weekly, and we would kind of similar to letters to Lucilius, I would come to him with a problem and he would apply the Stoicism on these walks that we were doing once COVID happened and we had lockdowns. So,
Mm.
and that became the basis of Reasons Not to Worry. And of course, everyone in the world has had a very different experience of COVID. In Australia, there were very severe lockdowns. You couldn't go more than 5K outside your house. The borders were shut. I'd been working as a travel journalist and lost all my work. And, I really needed Stoicism then, and was very glad I had it. And friends would contact me saying, put that Stoicism into my veins, like people were searching for something that gave them some sort of framework to cope with the pandemic. So yeah, that's how that started.
Yeah, I like the idea that what happened was, yeah, I did this on a goof, and then I got closer, and I know what, it actually worked. And then you pulled so many threads there that I feel that are important, and are congruent with what we're talking about, civic engagement, right? I got with friends, we supported each other, we kind of pulled these ideas, and it worked better when we did this together. And then that last one that you hit right there, the pandemic changed our lives and Stoicism kind of helped me get through a tough time. I've long felt that philosophical Stoicism is ideally suited to getting us through difficult times. And let me tell you, if you feel like you're living in a dumpster fire right now, this might be the philosophy for you, right? It's a spot, something that you can do. It's like, okay, I might not be able to. I might be able to put out the fire in the dumpster. I might not. I might be able to do something bigger. I might not. But what I can certainly do is understand how to solve me and the people that I care about most and get started there, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I had a piece in The Guardian in Australia yesterday about Stoicism and AI and conflict, because I've got a new book out. So I was writing about, well, you probably know my book from written in 2020. That deals with the pandemic. What we're dealing with now is also like quite full on and different. So how do we apply it to these things? And I listed about 4 things: leadership, AI, like the use of critical thinking and how important that is, and interpersonal conflict when it comes to the Middle East. So how do you navigate really like a polarized discourse? So
Right.
Stoicism helps with all of that. It's never let me down. It's very it's very it's just it makes me cross how right it is. It's like, damn, you're always right.
I like it. And
I wish you
it's
were wrong sometimes because you're a hard
it feels like a
ass.
superpower, right? I mean, if you
Yeah.
get the hold of this, it just feels like a superpower. And I love the fact that in the day, just today, we have covered how Stoicism helps from global conflict to the kids dumping their trash out in front of you in the car in front of you, right? So it's like it's the whole thing. It can handle all of that for us,
Oh,
I
yeah.
think.
Look, birth to death, it's and
Yeah.
everything in between. So, yeah, so it's amazing. Like, I think there's obviously, there's nuance it just doesn't get because they didn't know back then what they didn't know. I write about things like, I mean, my big issue with it was around desire. It's like, can you just stop it in its tracks? Like, what about the unconscious, the way our brains work, hormones. I did a workshop in Thailand a couple of weeks ago and at a gym, and they were asking about ataraxia in relation to neurodivergence. So, that's another thing. But apart from those nuances, it's, it's never wrong for long.
Wow. I think I'm going to use that line. I don't think I've ever heard that one before. It's never
So,
wrong for long, huh?
So that's what we say with online journalism. If you make a big mistake on an article or in a headline, you just go on the CMS and go, okay, we said that there were, someone had died, but they're actually still alive. So we'll just quickly change that. We're not wrong for long. And
Excellent.
yeah,
I like it. Okay, let me talk. Let me change this just a little bit. As a longtime journalist, you were exposed to perhaps the worst aspects of the modern world, including online abuse and the miasma of stress that we see in online media. You've noted that the internet often makes people less accountable for their anger. Certainly, I think we can all give an amen to that if we know what that word means. How essential to you is the Stoic idea of focusing solely on one's own character and avoiding emotional reactions like feeling distressed, tormenting yourself, catastrophizing, as some might call it?
it's really important. So there's a lot of hate directed at female journalists. There's been huge studies that have shown this. Also, Black journalists, queer journalists. So it's very unpleasant out there. And if I had my way, I wouldn't have comments at the end of articles. I just because you don't know where that person's coming from. Often their name's not on it. They might have a beef with you. So it often, the term in Australia is play the ball, not the man. They often play the man, not the ball. So they don't attack your argument; they attack you personally. So how I've used Stoicism in that respect is I don't read the comments. It means I don't see the good stuff, and it means I don't see the bad stuff. So I'm guided by my editors, and I'm guided by my own instincts. I've got a new book out. I'm not reading the reviews. I don't read Goodreads. I figure, I can't control the outcome of books. I can't control. Yeah, I can't control if they do well. Like my latest book has come out on a day that 1/3 of all books come out in Australia. So there's a tsunami of books, and it's nerve-wracking to see if it'll go well or if it'll sink. But I just have to say to myself, I can only control writing the best book I can write, and the rest is up to fate. And yeah, and with the comments, I just don't.
Here's the thing. I heard what you just said. That's really hard, isn't it? I mean, and I say this because we also live in this sort of Substack world. Like, I just published 300 words. Did people like it? Are they clicking on it? Are they sharing it? I mean, and you're saying, no, 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 just look away, do good work, go to the next thing. That seems like a
Yeah,
hard thing to do.
no, not not anymore. Once you've read some really bad comments about yourself, you don't want to you don't want to go back in there. And the worst is friends that say to you, I saw the worst thing about you on the internet the other day. Are you okay? And it's like, don't tell me. And they'll send you a screenshot, and it's like someone putting a piece of dog shit on your front porch and saying, here, look what I found. It's terrible,
Yeah.
but have a look at it. And I'm like, no.
Yeah. I
So
I'm with you on that. I don't need to see
yeah.
that.
So you have to, I mean, like a lot of the kind of top novelists that I've gone and sent over the years in writers' festivals, also, they're not Stoics, but they also have this advice of one bad line in a review can knock you off your perch as a writer, as a thinker for like 10 years. People get so wounded by reviews that it then prevents you from being ambitious or excited about your next project, because you've got that one line,
Yeah,
cruising around
I'm
your
with
head.
you.
So
I just want to say both bless you and Marcus would be proud of you, right? Because you've clearly not taken your thinking about yourself and stuck it in someone else's hands, right? I mean, that is not what you're doing.
yeah, I mean, sometimes it's worse when you have a book out and then people say, I bought your book, I read it, and then they don't say anything. And it's like, oh, you've read it,
Oh,
but
I really needed you to be nice to me, right? I really needed you to say, yeah. I have a technique for that. We'll come back to that sometime. But
mm,
let's go on to some of the other things that you've done because I want to get back to this book, right? All right.
mm,
You are the co-founder of the Mercy Campaign, an anti-death penalty movement. I got that right? Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. The virtues of Stoicism emphasize personal character development, courage, justice, moderation, wisdom. How do you reconcile the Stoic emphasis on intense individual self-improvement and emotional control with the necessity of collective civic action? So when I'm in there, right, there's so many Stoics are spending all their time working on themselves, and some of them, but you're saying, no, no, I have to go out and reach out into the world. Tell me about the tension for you
yeah.
on that.
There is a lot of tension in that. So the Mercy campaign, previously I was volunteering for a group called Reprieve that did a lot of, so there is an Australian group that does a lot of work in the kind of deep South states, the death penalty states in the US. So Australian lawyers and law students go over to New Orleans, Alabama, those sort of places, and they assist attorneys there on death row cases without being paid. So it's a really great program. And then me and a friend started a program for Australians on death row in Southeast Asia. So these are people who'd been usually convicted of drug trafficking. Um, and in Southeast Asia, in particularly the countries that we were working in, like Indonesia, Singapore, drug trafficking is seen as mass murder. Like culturally, it's seen as, if you're a drug trafficker, it's like you've killed 3,000 people. So the death penalty is very, accepted there. And we were two guys that we were working with, got their kind of sentences like fast tracked. And so we were trying to persuade people in Indonesia and in Australia to show mercy on these guys. And the campaign was very intense. It was high stakes. So if it didn't work, these guys would die. And I hadn't discovered Stoicism at that point, but I saw the ripple effects of, if you start humanizing the people on death row, if you get if you let people get to know them and their stories and their families, people feel a connection, and then they feel more inclined to help you act, to persuade governments, because that's what you've got to do, persuade governments not to execute these guys. And it didn't work, you know. They got
Mm,
executed on the sorry, on the 15th of April in 2015, and it was devastating. And you know, I then became a Stoic later on, and you know, would I do that now? I probably would. I probably would still do the campaign. Um, you know, it didn't work, but I think it's worth trying.
sure. And I see, you deeply affected by this. This, we do the right thing. You do the right thing. And we understand that it might not work,
Mm,
right? I mean, and we've heard lots of people today talk about the Stoic archer as we think about all the time, but this is one of those things where we know if we get attached to the result, we've kind of left Stoicism at that point. We kind of went
mm,
beyond what Stoicism would have
mm.
had us do, right?
Yeah, absolutely. But it doesn't mean you can't try, and I think
Doesn't mean you
that's
shouldn't try. You
yeah,
should try,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah.
So that's the dilemma I cover in my next book, which is social justice. How can you how can you act in a way that is according to your conscience, but also not get so destroyed by, you know, the process when you don't get what you want. And I think that's a real conundrum for activists
Sure.
because,
We
yeah.
used all that juice to get started. We used that energy, and then we basically got emotionally involved
Mm,
rather than rationally involved as we might
mm,
as a philosopher. And of course, this is easy for me to say at a distance, right? But I've got
yeah.
my own things, right? And it's like when
Mm.
my friend tells me, "You'll never believe my neighbor cut down all the trees in his yard, and now I can see my neighbor," and they're super distressed about that bit. And you realize when you see that
Mm,
stress in them, right, that that's because they had a load-bearing belief that those trees ought to be there. And so they
mm,
got very attached to the results and all the rest. And the thing that Stoicism kind of helps us understand is we are here to do good. We are here to act with virtue, wisdom, courage,
mm,
temperance, and justice.
mm.
And the world may not respond.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, what I take from it is the world may not respond, but the action creates a momentum where people really think about an issue. You know, they think about, well, do we want to have a death penalty? Doesn't it seems like it causes a lot of pain and suffering, and you know, for not much reward. So, yeah, I
Sure.
think there's persuasive aspects.
Well,
Um,
sometimes I think in those cases, right? And I want to get your thinking on this, right? So I
mm,
think that sometimes in these cases, like I realize that I can't walk up to somebody and change their mind. In fact,
mm,
I might really want to. They may believe something that is, I find completely repugnant. But by doing the right thing, by asking the right questions,
mm,
I might just get them a little closer to aporia, right? I might just get them to
yeah,
a little bit of uncertainty on their way to this. And
mm,
that's where we get started. I see someone in the chat said something about planting seeds. You talked about maybe in the future it'll be different. Right. I may have just
mm,
clear cut a little bit of a path, but
mm.
I did it because I did the right thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And it also influence, yeah, the influence of others to maybe do the right thing. But I think now I would be more like I would do it again, but I would probably talk to the guys who were killed, Myron and Andrew. I would probably talk to them about Stoicism and give them Stoic texts if they wanted it, because you know the I think for them knowing when they were going to die, I think that's a really quite unusual thing. And not being prepared for it. So they're prepared but not prepared. So it's
Sure.
so I think there's also pastoral work that can be done in prisons or with people on death row around mortality, which could maybe make things a bit easier for people in those situations.
We've done prison panels. We've talked to so many people who've
Mm,
worked in prisons. I've never thought about it from the point of view of death row. And if
mm,
ever there were a philosophy to help people understand where they might be and what comes and how they might approach death. I mean,
mm.
Stoicism, philosophical Stoicism is built for that, right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
All right, let me take you into The Seeker and the Sage a bit. Let me ask
Mm,
you some questions about there. I mean, in The Seeker and the Sage, your newest book, the mayor of Silver Springs suggests that rational calm is necessary to approach complex modern problems, including climate change and social consensus. Given your experience as a speechwriter for ministers, how might the Stoic framework influence the drafting of public policy or political communication? How does that work in contemporary civic life?
So it was interesting. I worked as a speechwriter for two cabinet ministers. One was the Minister for Finance, Women and Public Service. The other one was Minister for Environment and Water. And I gave the Stoicism book to both ministers when I started, and I said, "Oh, you guys might get some, wisdom from these guys." Um, and they read Reasons Not to Worry, and
Hmm.
but they said to me, look, politics is stoicism. Like if you're entering political life, you have um personally you have a lot. You're going for re-election every few years, so outcomes are outside your control. um you could be rolled by your own party. You could, you know be moved out of your portfolio. You can be attacked by stakeholders. So in order to survive in politics, you need a degree of stoicism. In terms of governance, um, it's yeah, I think justice is the big one at the moment for a lot of them, which is, there are competing notions of justice. So they have to work out, well, justice, which group am I going to serve? It's very hard to serve everyone. So yeah, I
Well, I
learned
can't.
you can't.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but you can't. So, but wait a second. Here's the thing. I think that there's a tension for those people that you're working for, and you can tell me I'm wrong,
Mm,
but I think there's a tension between what does justice demand of me and what is it going to take to get reelected? And I
exactly.
and there's always this utilitarian argument around what is it going to take to get reelected, and then there's a virtue ethics about who is what does justice look like in this moment? What do you do with
Mm.
that?
So often well, what do you do with it? You kind of have to be very careful about what party you join. So the party you join will influence which way you're going to bend. So I worked for the Labor Party, and their big thing was, they came from the trade union movement, so it was workers' rights. But that can sometimes really clash with the climate movement, which is all about environment. So do you protect jobs or do you protect trees? And if you work for the Green Party, then you protect the trees. You work for the Labor Party, you're going to protect the jobs. So you are steered by the choices that you make earlier on as to what party, what faction, what your so I was a speechwriter, what you say publicly really matters. You're held to it. So how you like I guess work with competing interests is based on so many different historic factors.
Yeah, but I'm looking for answers here. I'm looking for a framework. I'm not looking for you to tell me it's complicated. I need a framework to make that decision, right?
Yeah, well, your framework is the party, like that's
Yeah.
the framework. It's and the party is bigger than any one politician. And so you may have a politician that's very, very that comes into parliament as a young politician and is very obsessed with disability care. And that you can see over the years, that person becomes like, they might be able to keep that passion going as they rise up the ranks, but often it's knocked out of a lot of people earlier on because, you know, they lose a debate in the cabinet room or in caucus about something, or there's a budget cut. So it's snakes and ladders, and you've just got to have a lot of stamina and a lot of grit and pick one issue. Like, you can't really go into parliament with 3 or 4 things you want to do, because 20 years later there'll probably be only one thing that you're remembered for, and it's about picking that issue and kind of compromising on the rest.
Picking it well, isn't it? It's yeah, I think you're right. Focus is a singular word. It's not a plural, right? So we're going to focus. We're going to pick a thing and go do that thing.
Yeah.
And I've got one more. And then if Brittany's got questions from the audience that she wants to whisper in my ear or bring up, then we'll do that. But there was something, a theme that you hit inside of The Seeker and the Sage that I also find equally important. So I wanted to ask you about it. And you said, here's how I wrote this. One of the core themes is the lack of community in this epoch, the modern craving for connection. You've suggested that if one cannot find a community, one must start one. Now, from your lips to God's ear, in my opinion, what practical steps drawn from Stoic principles do you advocate for individuals to build durable, non-virtual communities that resist the pull of modern atomization and loneliness? There's an epidemic of loneliness. I think we need to figure out something to fight it. You seem to think the same thing. Talk to me about that.
Yeah, I think God, it's so hard out there because people, I grew up Catholic, but a lot of people have grown up without religion. And when terrible things happen, they don't have an ethical framework. They've got a kind of sense of the right thing, but they don't have anything they can, grip on. People are in very fast-paced, casual work, the gig economy. So the workplace has disappeared as a place where, you would have previously, generations ago, found your community. With cost of living crisis, there's less opportunities to go out and maybe go out for dinner with friends. So people are retreating into the home. Loneliness is increasing, and they're finding their best friend is their chatbot. Like, that's crazy. So you've got to make a commitment to leave the house. I think that's the main thing. And then you've also, groups like this are amazing, but I'm interested in kind of things that slow people down. So it might be, once a week or once a month, you might meet and just read together. You might just, you might be all reading, De Era or whatever, or some Stoic text, and you might have a reading group, or you might have, I think online is an important component because so many people are online. So you might meet once a month and then have a WhatsApp group where you check in weekly. I really should be organizing this, but I kind of move around a lot, so I'm a terrible example. But yeah, it's
I believe in it. It's just a little bit harder work. And the thing is, I get this all the time from people. But let me just say, let's just go back into your spot a little bit. So you already said that the second time you did Stoic Week, you had a WhatsApp group. Now, I'm assuming in this case, it happened to be people that you actually probably knew in real life. Maybe you even got to see their face.
Yeah, they were all in Sydney. So we all met up in Sydney, and then we all communicated on WhatsApp. But Stoicism allowed this intimacy that just general socializing didn't allow. And the intimacy is, I give you permission to tell me your problem, and you give me permission to apply some Stoicism to it. And then we go around, and it's that permission structure, which I think is really important. People I know don't want to burden you with their problems. They feel self-conscious, people carry things alone. So I think the first thing is to give permission of, like, it's okay to talk to me about what you're going through. I've got capacity. Let's have capacity for each other. There was this whole kind of meme going around a few years ago about self-care, which is like, my self-care is that I don't want to know about your problem. And I think, no, 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 that's bad.
What a friend. What a friend.
We have to start. I think the commitment to community is we have to first commit to caring about each other, to caring about people we may not even really know that well. And getting out of this, I guess, reliance on professional therapy. There's a shortage in Australia of professional therapists. So people are going to chatbots. And I think there's a lot of low level problems that people have where, they're unhappy at work or they've had an argument with their spouse, where previously they would have gone to a friend and said to their friend or their friends, oh my God, how can I do this job a day longer? It's so boring. So it's reestablishing those communities, but doing it, having a Stoic framework. So I think we have to commit to caring first, and then we work out the infrastructure.
This is so funny to me because I've created groups my whole life before I was even a Stoic, right? But I'm not even sure why I was doing it. People always said about my personality type, I was the kind of person that you'd stand someplace and a crowd would gather. And
You're
clearly,
NFJ or something? ENFJ?
oh, you see, now you got it's ENTJ, something like that. But
Yeah,
the point
yeah.
is, the point but I would stand and people would show up. And but I've started users groups of various types of, but my thinking about this is you just have to commit to a group, and it can all be different sizes even. So I have multiple things going at any given time. There's all the stuff you see us do here that's virtual, da 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 da. But the I like there's a guy I have coffee with every Wednesday, and I just have coffee just so we can share ideas. But the agenda is, how are you doing? How am I doing? How is the world impacting you? And then there's a group that, and I started this thing where I'd say I would have a beer on Friday nights. And so then it was 6, and then it was 8, and then it was 12. And the
Beers,
group
12
just
beers.
12 people. I'm
Oh,
a
right.
2 beer guy. At this point in my life, my friend, I've got temperance down pat.
I
But
started
it's
drinking
just
2, then it went to 4, then I was.
I hear you. It's so funny. I just had this conversation. I even drink less than I do, but I still like to show up and have the conversation with
Yeah.
these people. And it's nuts because I have people come from out of town saying, you get together on Fridays at 4, right? Can I join you guys? They're asking for permission to jump in. And I was like, and when they get there, they go, this is really important, Phil. And I'm like, I'm just a dude having beers with my friends and trying to make sure they're okay. That's really what I think we're up to.
I want to come
But
to beers with you, Phil. Where are these Friday night beers?
they are wherever you and I are, if that's the way you want it
Yeah.
to be. I would be happy to do that. I think that would be awesome. But I just feel like we are missing this thing at community. This is an act of civic engagement in and of itself, right? Is the fact that I can start with a small group. It might be that it's just 2 of you. I prefer there to be 3 because I think that more ideas come out of groups of 3 people or more. But as many as the muses, as they say, maybe 9 is the right number for you. But something that you can manage and that everybody can help each other. I
It's
think
great, but
we've built
it's
something.
also, there's also all these studies that say if you do what you've done, you'll probably live till you're 200. It is the key to like longevity, having a healthy social life. All these studies on the blue zones, about why these people in various areas live a long time. They're like, oh, is it alcohol? They're always going out. And
I was
drinking in
intrigued by the
towns.
blue zones, and then I'm like, I'm not convinced I want to live longer, to tell you
Uh,
the truth. So I
well,
don't.
it's apparently a fraud because they're areas with high pension fraud. So
Oh,
they,
nice.
yeah. So yeah.
We didn't need to get there. Okay, so let me this is my last question for you.
Mm.
You talk in the Sage about the spiritual exercises. I'm curious if you have spiritual exercises of your own. I mean, I get it. You write for a living. People pay you for your words, but do you write to yourself as well, or do you do something else?
I keep a journal. Have done since I was in my early 20s. And I meditate twice a day. So I do Vedic meditation twice a day for 20 minutes each time. So 40 minutes a day meditation. And I find that a meditation practice and Stoicism is actually the golden ticket. It's amazing because, they talk about ataraxia and they talk about equilibrium, and meditation brings you there on a physiological level. So intellectually, reading the Stoics, reading how important it is. I do Vedic meditation, so it is a form of transcendental meditation. And there's very similar, I find Vedic philosophy very similar to Stoicism. So there must have been some sort of meeting on the trade routes back in the day, and an exchange of ideas. And it's really similar. So a physical practice and an intellectual practice is the way that I keep Stoicism on the road. And journaling is just like getting out my frustrations or whatever. Like, I can't believe that this person, I know I shouldn't journal like that. I should be like, I can't believe I got mad today. But instead I'm like, that person's terrible. So it's and journaling's funny because you go back and you read your journals and you realize you just have the same problem over and over and over again. Like your whole life, it's just like one or two problems that keep, recycling. Yeah.
I know. I mean, we're sitting here talking about virtue and being rational, excellent human beings. And then when I look at my journal, I think we're all simple monkeys,
Yeah.
running the
Yeah.
same loops again and again. And that's the thing I'm trying to fix. And it's kind of the reason that I want to journal and I, try to fix my own thinking in that regard. Okay, I'll tell you what I'm going to do is I just want to say thanks, but I want to bring Brittany up here with me just because I think Brittany, I see her smiling and talking, and or she seems to be enjoying this just as much as the audience is. Brittany, was this not fun?
This was awesome. Yes, thank you so much, Brigid. We had a
Thank you,
commenter
Brittany.
say you're definitely the funniest presenter of the day. So you get that award.
There were tears also, though. There
That's
was
right.
tears and laughter, which
Hey,
I think it's about
Right.
6 a.m. here in Sydney. So it's a lot of emotion early in the morning.
Right. Well, that's life
Yeah.
too, right? Tears and laughter.
Okay. Someone's
yeah,
asking, what's the meditation again? Vedic, Vedic, Vedic.
yeah, we got you. All right. Thank you for, I know this is getting up early for you because, it's early. I mean,
And I've seen you get up really super early in the middle of the night to go on Australian Stoic calls. So
I did that. I've got
yeah.
one quick story for you. You'll appreciate this.
Mm.
This event started at 10 a.m. my time. I went to bed with my phone laying next to my head. Somehow, somebody on this very call panicked at 5 o'clock my time this morning and started texting me saying, I can't get on the call. I can't get on the call. I bought a ticket. Can you please let me in? And I was like, it's 5 a.m. I'm not even thinking about you yet, but I was. But here we are. Brigid, thank you. You are awesome. And I look forward to doing this again with you.
Oh, yeah. Thanks for having me, everyone.
Yeah.
Thank you, Brigid.
Just,
Thank
yeah.
you, Brittany.